Gantt chart in R. So this is what it'll look like at the end. I'm going to pulled up so I can explain as we go through, and I'll run it again in the end. This is kind of my environment, but we don't really need to see it most of the time. So I'm going to just have it take it all up so you have more to look at. And we don't really need to see the console, honestly. It just helps see more of all this for now. So, in terms of packages, we're going to be needing Plotly. We also, if you do not have it already loaded up, you don't have to call it, but you do need to install our color brewer if you don't already have it. It's basically the way we're coloring our chart bars and stuff. So that will be important things to do, and you would do that by saying install period packages and then open one of those parentheses, and having quotation marks around it and then parentheses again, but don't need that. So first we're going to pull up the library Plotly. That's basically how we'll be plotting this in that package. It's kind of like ggplot. And then we're going to be pulling up the library for read Excel library, basically telling we're going to read an Excel file. If you're loading in a package, loading in data from somewhere else, maybe you don't need that. But here we're going to call it local group when it loads. This being saying we're going to load this data into the local group as our data frame that we're going to be referencing. The assignment data 6, that's the name of the Excel file, quotation marks. Call types, it's basically the type of columns. So we have a text, date, numeric, text, date, numeric. We have to specify that sometimes because sometimes our guess is wrong. And then view local group, you see it. So I know I just said that, but if you ran all that, then this will pop up immediately. I'll run through this some. So this is where the task names are in it, the task number, who's responsible, projected start end date, which then subtracted equals the projected duration in days of each task, the stage, the description, was it completed, yes or no, the actual start, the actual end, and then we have the actual duration, task finished, and tasks underway and tasks yet to start, and then these colors get loaded in later, but not important right now. Yeah, like if I just did this part, for example, you don't see the colors. That's because when you run it, the colors get loaded in. They get added to the data frame, which is kind of interesting for all that. So, anywho, now we're moving on to local groups. So right here, we're going to now convert the dates to dates that we can use in their format. Just make sure they're in the right format. So, bring up the local groups. Project start is the column we're concerned about in here, kind of like right here, projected start. And we're loading in as.data is basically a data conversions function that we're referencing. We're getting it to go from conversions to characters, whatever. Again, we want to look in the projected start column, and we want the format to be year, month, date. So it just makes it into a format we can use. Client name. So that's what ends up going like right here later when we reference it. I put my actual client name, which is Steven. He also likes to have this in front of it. It's just part of who he is. You can put whatever there. You know, we could call it like, I don't know, Gantt chart, local group, local PSYOP group, because this is a local group for PSYOP that the data came from project-wise. So yeah, that works. But you have to put it in quotation marks. And then choose the colors based on the number of resources. So basically, we're having it automatically populate and choose colors. You know how I said there was that color category? Well, bam, that's how it does it. So this code kind of tells it to do that. So like if I just ran, you can see the colors have been added. Kind of cool stuff. Basically here we're telling it that we want to have a calls, color category. We're loading it into calls. Our color brews package. We want to do the we're referring to the brewer Powell function. We want the length of each of the colors to be unique. So each length needs to have a unique color based on the local group responsible party. So each party has a different color, responsible party category. So yeah, the columns. And then the name is set 3. So this color, if we wanted to change it and the colors in there, we could change this to like set 2. And if it ran up to, well, I have to run all of it. If I ran all of it, woo, with the 2 in there, I think you saw it change it from 3 to 2. See, I don't like those colors though. Don't really matter, but I just don't like. So I do set 3. There's set 1, 2, and 3. I think they're like complementary scalar or something like that for each set. But yeah, there we go. I like that better. Where were we? Aha, here we are. So now we're telling a local group for the color. So we're making this. We're making the color thing. So now we're making a local group color in which we're going to load in a factor for that category. For local group responsible party is the one that's that factor going into local group color, and the labels equals calls. So colors, the labels there are the calls that we created here. So we created here the individual color like list kind of, if you want to think about it, like we're using this number, this color, this one, and this one. And then from the set 3, that's how I found which numbers. There's 3 types of colors in there, and we're loading those colors that we created, the calls, into local group color, which we're creating. I think that makes sense. They're factoring into there. Boom. So yeah, all that code is just basically making that. Now we've got all that done. We're initializing the empty plot, so we need to run it at the end. Basically, everything under here is being built onto this empty plot. If the R was going real slow, you would see like before this populated like a little white blank page and some lines. And it's because it was an empty plot. Isn't that funny? Anyways. So that's why we're not putting any parentheses in there. We're just initiating it. We're calling that empty plot with the poly package P, which is important because whatever you put right here, you can see it's referenced quite a lot. And at the very end, which the reason I have a little note there, or we need to run it at the end, is to make sure to remember to run that P at the end, because it can be kind of easy to forget, because it's basically saying to load up the plot we just made. So each task is a separate trace. So each task in here is its own little trace line, right? And each trace is essentially a thick line of plot. So it's a thick line plot. Like these little, I can't make these pop up. I'm just trying to, but see, like thick lines, right? Thick line plot. And the x-axis text and dates are handled automatically. So this is automatically handled. If I didn't want them to say task, I could go in and individually take out on here task. So whatever I did here automatically populated. There's probably another way to handle it, but that's how I went about it. So yeah, now we're getting into the code. So this here, everything with anything like this is always like fun for me to wrap my brain around. But basically it's saying the I's throughout all this code right here, like as you can see, like I's in each road is basically saying the task. So I is referring to task. So for each individual task, and we want it to go through the whole thing one time, all the code we're building for a P. And for the number of rows there are for local group, we want to go through. So basically we want this all to go through one time for whatever number of rows there are for the local group data frame. So this is all basically saying, hey, I want you to go through and check all this for each one of these. Kind of cool. For each task. Boop. Make this for each task. Basically, this code is telling it everything I'm putting below, go like task 1, task 2, task 3, and postulate it. Postulate it? Create it? You know what I mean. Again, P, we're adjusting this empty plot. We're adding a trace to it. P, so we're starting the date and duration for the x-axis below here next. So PA, we're adding to the P. For the x-axis, we want to combine the following points. The local projected start date for each task, I. That's why it's in those square column things. What was that? I can't remember the name of that. But this thing in English. And then comma. And then the second thing we want for the x-axis to be is the projected start date plus the projected duration. So we're basically saying down here is the start dates, and for these we want to count the projected start date and duration, which is basically how they make these thick long lines. So that's the x-axis. And the y is just basically the tasks. We just want this to be the list of tasks, which is why it's II, because the task is I in the code. So mode equals lines. We want them to be lines, not, I don't know, circles or whatever. Not that deep. And then the line, we want the lines to be listed of the colors from the group color that we created, this column. We want it to reference these colors. Where am I? Oh, for each individual task, and we want it to be a width of 20. So that's basically how fat these lines are. You can make it a bigger number, a littler number, but the amount of tasks I have on here, I think that this size is perfect. So like 40 would be a fatter line. 10 would be a thinner line. Show legend false because we're adding our own stuff, and legend just basically breaks down for each task what the colors mean and stuff, and it just gets kind of messy. Hover info equals text, because we're saying when we hover over it, we want to make some text that appears. As you can see, text does appear. So we want text when we hover the bar. Text equals, so what text we want, we're about to code all that. We want to paste the following stuff that's in these. Jeez, why do I keep forgetting the name of this today? I don't know, man. Parentheses? That sounds right. No, that's the parentheses. That's a quotation. Yeah, and the parentheses. Just sorry. It's a day. So basically everything that's in green with the quotation marks is the, right, so the name of the line. So the name of, like, task, responsible, start date, duration. So we're naming what we want this line to be called as pulling up the data. So task, and for task, then we're doing comics. We're starting a new part of this line of code. We want the local group task name for each individual task. So for task, we want to pull up the local group task name category for each individual task. So that's how we got task and all that. So responsible, we want that to be the words in front of whatever the data pulls up, comma, local group responsible party for each individual task. So the responsible party for each individual task. So that'd be like Anna here, or there's one with Patrick somewhere. Steven, things like that. And then the duration, comma, local group, projected duration. So the projected duration for each one, individual. And then I'm adding days right here. These are just green quotations that go all the way over here. Sorry, you didn't see that. Because there's something really right after it, and putting the quotation over there. This actually, the exact place I'm putting these is important because I didn't, and that's if I change the placement inside the bar. If I put more spacing or anything, it would cause these to be aligned differently. Like some would be in the middle, some would be left aligned, rows. So it was all messy. So it's important to keep that in mind. So yeah, that quotation I put there. These are basically, didn't need anything after the text, but like as you can see for duration on here, I have days added. That's not actually in the written text under duration. So that adds days in. So if you need to add any wording after some data, you would use that. And then phase, local group, stage for each individual task is for the phase. And then again, for this one, deliverables. Local group description kind of goes over the different deliverables, like a big yearly conference plan, task progress. So this is an interesting one. This is a conditional panel one, which again, just like the other thing else, it's really important that you write it exactly the right way. I had a lot of problems with my conditional panel formatting, so encoding it. So yeah, again, you have the task progress if. So how this works is it's if statement. You have if this condition is true. So is the first part. So if this condition right here is true, so well, like if this condition, not is true, sorry. If this condition, so this is the condition is if the local groups, if the task is completed. Yes. So you can see it in here. Where is it completed? Yes. So if it says yes, That's a true statement for each individual task that you go through each line of each individual task, right? If it says yes, now the double equal is kind of important because it's something you don't really think of intuitively. But basically, an equal sign can also be like a way to load in a data frame or separator, but the double equal is saying that we want equality testing to happen. So that's why you need the two equal signs. So yeah, we're saying for each individual task, if for the local group completed, column, if it says yes in it, then I want you to do this. So then I want you to do all of this part. If that's true, if this condition's true, do all that. If that condition's false, do this. So if that condition's true, what do we want? We want to paste local groups completed for each individual check if it's completed, and then I'll show the actual start date. So what the actual start date for the individual task was and the actual duration, again, calling up that specific column for each individual task in days. So in seeing it here, you can see that it says task progress no, so it hasn't been started. But over here, you can see actual start and duration on that lower right aligned part. I did it like that so it's very clear that it's separate. When you pull it all out, it doesn't really get us crowded, but I'll show you more. And so these little curly Q things are basically what tells it that we're entering the first if it's true. These are around for the if it's true. Else means we're entering the if it's false part right here. And then close parentheses, comma, because we have completed the paste part. And then evaluate T. I was really confused at what the heck this meant at first, but I figured it out. So basically, by default, R will, when you're putting this much coding, it'll do like this lazy loading thing, where if there's not enough information to be kept locally, it'll kind of put it not locally accessible. So we're telling it, don't be lazy. Don't be like hiding stuff off. Look, pull all your work here and do it here. And the reason is because if it wasn't doing all its work locally, then maybe this point and click wouldn't work because we're asking it to work within this local data frame, not store it somewhere else in R with this running code. So we're telling it, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. If we put false, then we could tell it to be lazy, basically. But that would cause problems with this graph, so we need it to be true. We need her to work. So now we're done with that part. We're done with the part where we're just basically making the little hover bar. We've created that. And now we're moving into the information, the plot, and to make the chart more presentable. So again, we're referring to that empty chart plot, which is called P. We're loading that layout in there for P. For the x-axis, we're saying, okay, I want you to list the following. For show grid, so do we want to show the grid false? So we don't want any grid lines, is basically what we're saying. For the tick font, we want the color to be 000, which is black. So basically, this is black, and this is black, and that's black. For the x-axis, sorry. This is the y-axis. X-axis, everything loads is black. And the y-axis, everything loads is black. Now you might be wondering, how do I know what the hex code is for a certain color? I got a cool thing. I recommend, this isn't necessarily necessary for this explanation, but I want to show it because it's kind of cool. Even if you don't use Canva, you can go to canva.com colors, close bracket color wheel, and you could put in 000. You could check your colors you put in here. You could also go, I don't know, I want a yellow, right? Look, hey, just cover the hex code, and on top of that, you can choose a color combination. So maybe you want something with tridatic colors, complementary colors, so you can see the hex code for colors that complement tetradatic. I think it's cool. It's a good way to make a concise graph. I didn't necessarily use it for everything, but I did use it for kind of generally picking out some colors. So did want to share that. But anyways, you can also double check hex codes and what that color means in there. So yes, 0 is black. It's referring to these. I put in the zeros because I thought black would look nice. Right, okay, so for the x-axis, we basically said that. The y-axis, we did the exact same. Said don't show the grid, we don't want grid lines. For the font, we want it to be black colored. Tick mode, arrays, that's just basically how we want the tick modes laid out. We want it in array format, tick values. So for here, we're saying, again, the one, basically we're going to go through this whole thing one time for the number of rows that exist, and local group. We want the text to be unique to the local group task number. So we're basically telling it for the tick values. So for on here, the tick motor rate, for the tick values right here, we want it to go through the number of rows in the local group data frame, and for that part, and then for the tick text, so the text written on the ticks, we want to go into local group task number, and it'll pull that in. So that's how we got that. The domain is basically where we want this laid out within the chart. The annotations, you kind of want like just on the edges like that, and the annotations, X, so how much we want. We're going into the we're making some annotations to add. So now we're going to the code for making this part right here, little annotation. We want that instead of like a legend. So equals list. So we're about to list out everything we want in that annotation. So for the X reference and the Y ref, we want it to be paper. I was like, what the heck does paper mean? I was doing some Googling, doing some search and nurturing. And this is generally what I understand. I'm not like a deep coder, but like, so basically it's part of the different layouts you can have for annotations in general within a graph, and paper means you want to be the left side of the plot aligned. Looks like it's on the right, but what I'm saying is wherever I tilt to go, it wants to be left aligned within that area of the chart. So I told it to go X 0.7, so on the X-axis I wanted to go like 0.7 towards the end, right? And then Y 0.1, and it puts it in that little spot, and it's left aligned in that spot. So pretty sure that's what I understand, and I think it's correct. Text equals paste 0, so we're pasting all this for the text down here in this annotation is what that's saying. We want to paste that. Completed with the green parentheses. Again, the way I lay this out here is really important that it's aligned if I want it aligned here. So I put the parentheses, I put completed down, so make sure to do it in a similar format. Some stuff, it doesn't matter where you lay the text, it kind of does for this. So the first parentheses there, and then I did a tab, put completed, colon, space, parentheses, so that there's space column. And then the sum of the local group tasks finished. So I'm telling you to go into the tasks finished column of the local group data frame, and I want you to sum up all those items. And then I want to put a little like dash for like an equation format, and then comma, again, we're going to new thing, and number of rows within local groups is the bottom part. And then we're putting task next to it. So basically making that little equation. And then total underwear, again, underway, not underwear, lol, same things. Task underway, summing all those up, putting them over the number of rows within local group, and tasks. And then sum local group task gets to start over that, and row local group tasks. Dope, dope, dope. Font list equals color. So we're basically saying the color for the font down here, we want it to be hashtag FC039F, which is pink. And again, if I went to that color wheel and I put that code in, it'd be like pink, because I like my pink. Size 12, so the font size is 12. AX0Y, AY0. It's basically saying there's more than one X and Y variable where I want it, and the coordinates, but irrelevant. I put 0 align left. Again, we want it, the list aligned to the left for all that. Now we're going to talk about the client name title top, so up here. So for the X reference, again, the paper thing, annotations, left aligned. But you could see more up here, the title, because you can see that it's left aligned. It's easier to kind of see what that paper thing means. Anyhow, and I confirm it with the left aligned. I think at least. X, so the X-axis, we're wanting to move it 0.1 from the X, and the Y 1, so almost all the way at the top, and a little bit to the left right there is where we want this placed in. The X anchor again to the left side, rear reference and left everywhere. Text equals paste. So we want to put in local group Gantt chart, colon, and then comma client. So that's basically whatever I put the client as, it would add that in. Font equals list. So for the font, we want to have this color. Again, it's the same one as I used right here because I thought it would make the most sense to do the same color. This bright pink. Size 20. So up here, this is 20, this is 12. Family, Times New Roman, because Times New Roman is the type up there. Again, the whole no other variables, align equals left. And then the plot background, this is like a light pink color. So this is just for the plot background color. So it'd just be like within the plot itself. Plot paper color would be like behind the plot color. So like you could potentially have this be like pink and this be white, but like it just looks better if it's all pink to me and continuous. And then the P at the end is basically saying we're going to call up that plot. So hope that all makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and run it just so y'all can see it go. And while I was doing this, I think I actually noticed something a little off. I don't think it really has to do with explaining it, but see, the completed underwear, it doesn't really add up. So let me... Look at that. I accidentally put a task finished under and underway. Let me change that real quick. I will go ahead and change that real quick, but not that important. I just noticed it added up not to over 23 tasks. I was like sitting there like, that's not 11 plus 13. That's there's something wrong. So I'll go ahead and fix that. But not important. Just go fix that. How I would fix that, if you're curious at the end, just want to see it, Steven, you can log off. But yeah, someone was dang curious. We could even boo. We could go to the files here, view the file, see how I did that pretty thing, and basically, oh yeah, that was the one that was underway. Oops. And then I would just reload everything again. Yeah, there we go. That's more like it. 12, 1, and 10. Thank you. Not that important, but I noticed it was bugging me a little. So that's fixed now. Otherwise, I've gone through everything y'all need to know. And I gave you a little trick to if you need to change something in your data. So I hope that was helpful. And that is how to make a Gantt chart in R. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below.